everyone. I'm Ashley Jones from Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I'm your host for Between Friends today. And it's so good to be here with everyone. So, everybody out there watching, as usual, tell us where you're watching from. We love to hear from you. Also, we're talking about In the Hoop projects today, so we're going to give you the scoop on In the Hoop. So, are you guys familiar with In the Hoop projects? Have you done them? What's your favorite things to do in the hoop? So tell us that over there in the chat. So we've got people that are joining already. I love seeing where everybody's watching from. So we'll just go back here. So I see we've got Retha Ranke from Wyoming. Thanks for joining, Retha, all the time. I know that you are on here with us nearly every time we're here. So we've got Texas in the house. Another Texas, so North Texas. Oh, Alaska. So who we got watching from that looks like Soldotna, Alaska. So Maryland, thanks for joining. So we've got Ohio, and we've got Renaud Paulson from Northern Norway. So people from all over. So welcome everyone. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. We're excited to share some information about in the hoop stitching. So let me go ahead and welcome our guest. We have a special guest today. It is Reen Wilcoxson of Embroidery Gardens. Now, to me, Reen is the queen of In the Hoop. She actually has been around for a very long time. She's been doing a lot of amazing things with In the Hoop designs. And I can't wait for her to share some of the information about Embroidery Gardens with you. So, Reen, if you'll join me on the screen, I would love that.
Hi,
How are
Ashley.
you today? Good to see you.
You too. Hi, everyone.
Yes, and so Reen, I do truly believe that you are the queen of In the Hoop. So years ago when I started embroidering, I dabbled with some In the Hoop stuff. I knew that my embroidery machine could do run stitches, and so just things like flat things like coasters or like a luggage tag, things like that, that I just could draw a shape and have my machine stitch it is kind of what I did. But then I discovered Embroidery Gardens. I think the first time that I purchased a design from Embroidery Gardens was probably like 2012, and it was your In the Hoop crochet hook organizer. So that was the first thing that I did from Embroidery Gardens. So, and it was so much fun, and I was hooked after that because I've never been one to do a lot of sewing. I really like everything embroidery, and so I love it when my embroidery machine can do it. But Reen, just in case we have some people new to In the Hoop, we do have people saying love In the Hoop projects already, and so I bet we have a lot of people out there that are familiar. But just in case we have like some new embroiders or new to In the Hoop, tell us about In the Hoop. Like, you know, just describe what it is, and then tell us too how you got started with it.
So if you're not familiar with In the Hoop is kind of a process in machine embroidery that allows you to create 3D items. So, you know, you can actually create, you know, bags and purses, things with zippers. You can, you know, I digitize it the way so that there's a placement line for a zipper, then it tacks the zipper down, then you add fabrics, you know, back and forth. And each step that you do is a color change, and that makes the machine stop so that you can do what you need to do. Maybe you need to add fabric, maybe you need to trim, maybe you need to manipulate the fabric in some way. But it's basically a process of steps so that when you're finished, you take this out of the hoop, and most of the time you trim it. Most of the time there's an opening that you would turn it through, just like if you had sewn it, you know, in a sewing machine. And you turn it, and voila, you've got a wallet, you've got a purse, you've got a bag, you've got, like Ashley said, keychains, key fobs, just stuffed animals, just so many different things that are made in the hoop.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, so I would just put a comment up there where somebody said, "Love." So Jolene said she loves In the Hoop because there's very little extra sewing, which I totally agree. And I think, Reen, the majority of your designs you have figured out a way so that they are pretty much complete, maybe just minus closing and opening, right? You don't have them do a lot of extra sewing outside the hoop, right?
Right. Most of them are just, it's the opening for the turning. That's what you're going to have to close. And you don't even have to sew it if you don't want to. You could use fusible tape, something like that to close up that opening. Do have some things that, I call them multiple hoopings, which they're really more like options, like a purse with an optional pocket on the front, or a credit card lining. Those are optional. And you would have to do those each in a separate hooping. And then in the end, in that final hooping, everything gets put together and sewn together. That's how most of my designs work.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of what is so loved by In the Hoop is because most of us that like these projects, the sewing part is not what we love. We love using our embroidery machine. It produces perfect results every single time. And so that is what we're looking for with the In the Hoop. So I totally agree. And I think every time you come out with something new, I'm just so impressed with things that you can do in the hoop. And I want to point this out. Retha Ranke says Embroidery Gardens has great customer service too, which I think is
Oh,
such a
thank
nice
you.
compliment, right?
Right, it
So,
is.
but I know that now, Rain, you actually have like taken this to a new level where not only are you putting things on the front and the back of the hoop, but sometimes your designs actually go through the hoop, right?
Right. I'm saying it was probably close to 6 or 7 years ago. I was making a men's wallet, and you know how it kind of folds, it trifolds, and I wanted a pocket that had, credit cards in it. Then behind that, it needed to be lined. Then, that's where you would put your paper money. Then there would be another compartment behind that, and plus the back of the wallet. And I just could not figure out how to do it. I didn't want to do multiple hoopings. It would have taken, 3 or 4 hoopings probably to do this. So I was kind of just looking at it, thought I couldn't do it. And I happened to look over at my cutting table and I saw my rotary cutter. And I started thinking, well, if I can't do it on the front side of the hoop and I can't do it on the back side of the hoop, maybe I can go through the hoop with the fabric. And that's what I
Wow.
did. I cut the stabilizer and then I took the fabric and manipulated it through that cut that I had made, and it worked. And then I took
That
that
is
technique and applied it to other designs of mine. So,
so
there's
impressive, and so creative, Reen. It's a technical kind of creative for sure, but things that not everyone thinks of. So I love that. So Reen, for once you started Embroidery Gardens, what was your very first in the hoop design? Like, what was it that started it all for you?
Well, I actually started out doing appliques, and I had done a few sets of, simple appliques. And then someone emailed me one day and they wanted a treat, a favor for their daughter to give away at school for Valentine's Day. And she wanted a sucker holder. And I kind of asked her, well, what do you want? I don't understand. And she said, oh, just make 2 pieces of felt, put some buttonholes in it so I can stick a sucker through it. So that was my very first in the hoop design. I mean, as simple as it gets. And from there, I started building. And, I think some of my first projects were just made of felt. And maybe it was a little case that, was open and you could put something down inside of it. And, then the next thing built upon that, and maybe it had a flap to it. But it's all a process of building. You take one idea that you have and you start building on it and building on it until the point where I'm making, zippered bags that have 3 zippers, totally lined on the inside, separate pockets on the inside. It's kind of hard to describe how you go from something so simple to something so complex. But I think once you get your technique down, and every designer has their own technique, but once you get your technique down, you can, just go through and keep developing and keep adding on to the ideas that you have.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I definitely agree with you. Kind of the thought process evolves. So DM looks like maybe Chase says Reen's designs are so well thought out, which I totally agree, Reen.
Thank you,
All of
Dawn.
the steps. So, and everybody's loving you. They say they love Embroidery Garden's designs. And I definitely agree. And so just all of nice things. They love In the Hoop. I like having finished projects. And so bestsellers are always from Reen. So I think that that's awesome too. So notebooks, key fobs for sure. And Susan Timchek says, if only we could do binding in the hoop, that would be fabulous. And actually, I don't know about you, Reen, but I actually have done binding in the hoop before. Stitched it on the
I've got
front
some
anyway.
things that I do have binding, like this behind me, this little hanging that's up there. That is, you know, the outside edge, that is binding. And that even actually has mitered corners on it.
Very
so
nice.
you can do it, you know, but of course on a small project, whatever can fit into your hoop.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we would need a pretty big hoop for our quilts, right?
Oh, definitely.
That's awesome. And so, well, cool. So, Reen, I know you have a project that you've started working on to kind of give us some tips and tricks along the way. And so, if you want to show us what you've got for us, and then I'll just kind of keep looking and see if we have questions. So,
All right.
show us what you've got for us today, Reen.
Okay, so I have started an In the Hoop bag, and let me show you my table. So I've gotten the design, a few steps of it done. The first step would be to make a placement for the zipper so you know where to put it. Then the zipper was placed, and then the machine came and actually tacked the zipper down along each edge. After that, I had to go to the back side of the hoop, and I'll go ahead and I'll use my hoop and press pad and put the hoop over that. And this piece and the front piece got stitched on. And then my next step in this design is to fold this piece over. And once I get it folded over, what I like to do, and what is one of my most important things I think of making your project turn out as nice as it can be, and I'll show you a few samples, is to press it in the hoop. And now that the hoop
Pressing
is on
makes
the
all the difference,
side, and
right,
I have
Reen?
the hoop and press pad underneath. Did you have a question, Ashley?
Oh, I was just saying pressing makes all the difference in that finished product, right?
It does, because if you see, if I just pull this piece of fabric over and I just would just tape it down, it forms what I call the bubble. And you see how the fabric is not laying flat. So if you just tape it down, that bubble's going to stay there. So what I like to do is, after I've folded it over, take an iron and press it. And basically that's what I'm doing. I'm pressing, I'm not ironing. I'm kind of just pressing my iron down. I'm not using steam, but once you get it pressed down, you can see how nice and flat it is. And that's going to create a really nice lining. This is my lining on this bag when it's finished. The next step in this design is to place another piece of lining. And I would place it, and then I would get it taped down. And the hoop press pad, which we're going to talk about here in just 1 second, is providing support underneath this hoop where I can apply pressure to my tape. So if this pad wasn't underneath here, I couldn't be able to press this down and get it adhered well like it needs to be. So then I go to the front side of the hoop, and I need to place my next piece. And this piece I was actually going to use a piece of faux leather on. This is going to be the piece that goes above the zipper. And I just turn it to the right side, place it down. And I do want to tape it in place. You always want to tape your pieces in place because you don't want to take a chance of them shifting or moving on you. And then I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to let it stitch just this one seam here. So it'll just take a second to do that. And are there any questions while this is stitching?
Yes, there actually are, Reen. So the first and foremost, let's start with Natalie. She said, "What is the hoop and press pad?" Which is our ace in the hole. All right.
Right, it is. It's a brand new product that I developed in collaboration with Dime. I had the idea, Dime has brought it to life. As I have done in the hoop designs for almost 20 years now, and I taught and traveled for about 6 years. I saw a need for this type of a product. This is done stitching. Let me just grab it off there so I can show you. Let me go back to my table. So what I would notice in class, when you had to work on the back side of the hoop and you had to tape things down, I noticed people pressing and pressing on their stabilizer. Some people almost press so hard that they would actually touch the table while they were pressing on there. And that it just dislodges your stabilizer. It makes it start to get wonky in your hoop. And we all know from machine embroidery, your stabilizer has to stay where it's at to, make your project finish the way it should be, to keep it nice and flat and everything. So I came up with an idea for a pad that could be put underneath the hoop. So this is the 6x10 pad. This is my 6x10 hoop. So when I have work on the back side, the pad is underneath, the hoop is put upside down on top of it. And this way, when I need to tape, and I've already taped this piece on, I did that a second ago, but if I had to tape something else on, I now have support underneath my hoop that I can really press this tape on to make sure that it's adhered down. Also, I noticed that things needed to be pressed on the back side of the hoop. Again, if I just fold this piece over and just tape it down, I get that bubble again that, that's going to be visible in your lining when you're done. So when a piece needs to be folded over on the back side, you should iron it. And with the hoop and press pad underneath, you have that support that you can iron. I've seen women try to iron without support underneath. And again, you're pressing down on the hoop. You can see my stabilizer moving as I'm pressing right there. And so that's going to, make it move around and make it become unsecure in the hoop.
And if you, Reen, and if they loosen their stabilizer, like you said, when they put it back on the machine, IntheHoop designs are so precise when it says, because they're stitching down your zipper, they're doing that perfect seam allowance, things like that. It's going to possibly not line up, but it's also true with, like you pointed out, your regular embroidery designs too. If you loosen that stabilizer because you're taking it off to trim or to, put down another piece of fabric or whatever, when you put it back on the machine, if it doesn't line up, sometimes that's, other elements, but if you've loosened your stabilizer, it can certainly amount to that. And we have other questions too, Reen. So Retha and also Kathy Cat asked about the tape that you're using.
I use a medical tape. I get it off of Amazon.
Same here.
It's just the best tape that I've ever used. It is just a plastic type of a tape. It tears very easily. I tear off a piece like this and then I can actually take it, and I try to use the least amount of tape possible when I'm doing a project. So this tape, it tears off into strips, small strips very easily. And that's what I use.
Nice. Oh, I love that. And so, and I do the same thing, right? Medical tape, Scotch tape, painter's tape I've used before. I've also used, does anybody out there use our print and stick target paper? So that's an adhesive template paper that you print an embroidery design on. And so, Reen, a lot of times when I print, it's in the center, and all of the paper that I cut away from the edge is, tacky. So I use those scraps for this very thing too, to tape down, and I'll show that when whenever I go under the hoop. But there's so many things you can use. I also use scraps of my adhesive stabilizer as well sometimes to do that. So we all like to have the ability to save as much as we can, right?
Right.
And
You still
so
want to
here's
use,
Go ahead.
something that's going to work. It doesn't
Right.
matter if you're saving and the product isn't going to work, but yeah,
absolutely.
save when you can.
Yeah, and like you said, it's something, and you definitely want it to hold. I mean, that's the whole purpose. Putting it on the back, if it doesn't hold, then your pieces you put on the back could shift, and then then it's not lined up like it should be. So, we've got this question from Jeannie. She said she wanted to know if she's using a lace type zipper, Reen, when would she tack it down? So, if she has an in the hoop bag, generally the zipper is finished with the fabric on top, and so do you have any recommendations for using a lace type zipper?
Well, to me, to use a lace type zipper, the design really needs to be digitized for a lace type zipper. Like with this design, you really couldn't just use a lace type zipper because now my zipper is already stitched down and encased, like Ashley just said. So you wouldn't see the pretty little scalloped edge of a lace zipper on here. And a lace zipper would have to actually be on top of the fabrics if you wanted to see that pretty little scalloped edge. So that really requires a new type of a design to be digitized for that.
Yeah, good point. So I love that. I think there's always room for substitution in some of the things that we do, but that's a really good explanation. So Lori Albrecht said Reen's designs are ingenious. I agree, Reen.
Thank you, Lori.
And a friend of mine from Tacoma, Washington, Roz, my friend, thanks for watching. Good to see you. I mean, everybody's just commenting how much they love your designs, Reen. So design stitch out to perfection, and so I totally agree. What about any specific tips, Reen? Like, I think the taping is a very good tip, and it's something that I definitely had wanted us to talk about. But do you have any other tips? Like the iron is clearly a very important part of In the Hoop to make sure that the end result is perfect. So making sure you press along the way, using your hoop and press pads to support. It's another tip for In the Hoop, right? And using a good tape that's actually going to hold whenever you're stitching to the back is another good one. Do you have any other tips that you could share with everyone?
Well, what I like to do also is on my main pieces, which would be the pieces that are above and below the zipper and the back side, I like to iron SF 101 onto the back side. You might not be able to really see this. Maybe along the edge, you can see where I ironed this. This is a white piece of fabric. It's called SF 101. It's a lightweight fusible, just on one side, interfacing. It's not a stabilizer, it's an interfacing. And I like to put that on all my outer pieces just because I think it adds a little bit of stability to your bag. So that's, one of my tips, that I do that on almost every one of my bags. I wanted to show you a couple of bags here too. Like this one I did out of fur. So you don't just have to use cotton fabrics. This one has fur and actually faux leather up here. On this one, I used foam inside. And you can see it has a really nice structure to it. If I kind of hold it sideways, you see it's very nice and upright. Some other bags that I've done, like, for instance, let's see, I believe this one. Notice how it I'm trying to hold it the same way and it flops over. This one just has batting inside. So it all depends too on the structure you want your finished bag to have, whether you want it to be more soft and,
Pliable.
subtle, or if you want to have more structure where, this thing isn't moving. And there are tips too when you use something like foam or, faux leather or faux fur on projects too. So, it all depends, again, on the structure you want your bag to have. And also, let's see another sample over here that I did. This one has foam, and it also has a little bit of quilting. Quilting will add stability to your bags too, more structure to them. This one, again, I'm holding it up the same way. It's straight. It's not falling over or anything. So Think about that when you're getting ready to stitch out a bag, how you want the finished feel of it to be.
Yeah, I love that. That's some definite great tips for sure. Natalie, it looks like Bush said, would you put SF-101 on a reading pillow? What do you think about that, Reen?
Well, I've gotten to the point now where anytime I'm embroidering on 100% cotton fabric, I put SF-101 on the back side of it. And especially if it's just like a solid or something, I put SF-101 on the back side. You start doing that and you're going to see a difference. You're going to see a difference in your stitching. You're going to see a difference in how that finished in the hoop design feels. And maybe, if it's part of like a hanging, how it hangs. So that's something that has just kind of become second nature to me now, is to use SF-101.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. So any extra stabilization it's going to make everything stitch out better, if you don't have things stretching
Right.
and moving around, right, Reen?
Right. And we're talking about, like in the hoop projects, and like the viewer said, a reading pillow. Yeah, I would probably use it on that reading pillow. Definitely not when you're just, monogramming a shirt or something like that. You don't need to iron it like onto the back of a shirt or anything.
Yeah, for sure. And so Mary Larson says, what is the foam? So what foam are you referring to, Reen?
Well, it's the dime foam. I just got
We
some
love
of that in. I know this piece is kind of big, but I'll try to show the edge of it and what it looks like here. But what I like about this foam is, and I just started using this, is that, it does add the structure that I want. It's not really, I want to say it's not real thick. I mean, it has a nice density to it, which I love, but it's easy to sew with. And one tip too, if you are sewing with things like foam and, maybe even faux leather, this faux fur, with the faux fur and the foam in this one, I had to raise up my embroidery foot. One notch, I raised it up, because as it was stitching, I could tell my foot was kind of dragging just a little bit as it stitched. So I went into the settings of my machine and I just hit it one time and raised it up, once click on my machine, and it was perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's a very good tip on the foot height too, I think. So, and then because the hoop and press pads are so integral, they're such an integral part of doing in the hoop. I've got another example that I wanted to share, Reen, and I'll also show, we're getting questions about the hoop and press pads and what they're for. So what machines they're for. So this will allow me to kind of answer some of those questions. So, there we go. I was going to say, I'll bring up my camera here. And so if you have ever done in the hoop blocks, or if you like to do quilt as you go, I love doing piecing in the hoop. It's one of the techniques that we teach here at Dime. But I think it's really nice to actually go ahead and quilt while it's still in the hoop. And so like this would be my quilting design. And this is just one of our quilting designs from Swirls and Paisley. But instead of taking this out of the hoop, in order to go ahead and quilt my block, what I would do is I would put the batting and backing on the back. And like Reen said, if I push on this just to put my tape on, then my quilting design may not line up perfectly. So this is my 8x8 hoop, my brother baby lock hoop, and I've got my 8x8 press pad. So I'll show you the sizes after this part here, and then I'll talk to you about how to figure out for your machine. But you can see it fits over perfectly, and like Reen said, it creates that space. It fills that void underneath, so that when you're working from the back, you don't risk loosening your stabilizer. So if I was going to quilt through 3 layers to make a block for quilt as you go, I could put my batting on the back, make sure it's nice and smooth, and then my backing fabric. So my quilting design is going to go through all of those layers. Now, like I said, I use like a blue painter's tape, just it holds really well. It will, it's easily removed. But this is my print and stick target paper where I actually had the piece, the printed design that I put on the front. And so what I do is all of this leftover, I don't like to waste it. So these are perfect. I just cut it into little strips and I can just use that to tape that into place as well. So look at that. And like I said, I've done this with my leftover adhesive stabilizer too. So if you really like to conserve things, but then that's going to hold it. And so then it didn't allow my stabilizer to, you know, have any pressure on it, and because it fills that space. So, and I'll show you what I mean with a hoop that does not have anything in it. So let's talk about these sizes. So this is the 8x8, and I'll talk about dimensions in just a bit. And then also we have, so this is my 6x10 hoop, and I don't have any stabilizer in it because I wanted to show you from the front what it looks like. So you can see how this pad, it fills that space and fits in the opening. So when it is upside down, it is creating that, that filling that void to make sure that you don't loosen your stabilizer. So that's what these hoop and press pads are doing. It's a wool felt on the top, 1/2 inch thick, but then it has a non-slip surface on the back, so when you're working with it, it's not going to move around, which reminds me of another use, Reen. I don't know about you, but I use these for ironing, you know, near my embroidery machine too. And then we're teaching a bag class, one of the classes that we've been teaching. And another thing I use this for is when you're putting on hardware onto your bag, you can put that hardware down and iron from the back and it'll kind of absorb into the pad. So that's another great use. So we also have, this is the 8x12, the 6x10. This is a 5x7. And the 8x8, these are kind of what we are calling, you know, your general standard hoops, the ones that these fit in. Now, to know if it's going to work with your machine, so I do know that these work with all of our brother and baby lock hoops, but I'll show you how to find out if they work for other your hoops particularly. This 5x7 I know works with my Viking hoop, my Viking and my Pfaff hoop, but I'll give you some more details. So we've got those 4 sizes there, and then we also have the oval hoops too. If you have an oval hoop, we have this set that comes with 3 different sizes in this set. And when you go over to dzgns.com webpage, in fact, I'll just open mine up really quickly. So when you go over, they are on special for the event today, or for the Facebook Live today, and they are a variety of different price points depending on which one. But when you select from the drop down list here, you will see the sizes that are offered. And it has one for the oval hoops, but the 2 bundles here, the bundle of the standard hoop bundle includes all 4 of these sizes, and the oval bundle includes 3 different sizes. And if you scroll down on the website, it actually will tell you the measurements of these pads so that you can actually check the interior measurement of your hoop. So take your tape measure or your ruler, measure that interior opening of your hoop, and then that will tell you if these will work for you. Now, the oval hoops, we only have the 145 by 25 individually because the other ones work as a trio. And we actually have a video that describes that better than I even could, Reen. So how about we play the video that talks about the trio of the oval hoops. Oval press and
hoop and press pad Bernina bundle works as a trio, and you'll use all 3 when using your different hoops. For the small oval, just take the small pad and stack it on top of the other 2, and then place your small oval hoop on top of that pad, and then you can apply heat or tape, whatever your task is, to the wrong side of the hoop. When using the midi hoop, you'll just flip the pad so that the midi pad is now on top of the stack, and then place the hoop wrong side up, and the attachment and the wheel will be elevated so that you can apply pressure to the back of the hoop. When using the largest hoop and press pad, place it on top of the other 2 hoop and press pads, take your hooped fabric and place it the right side down, and then you can apply heat or pressure to the back of the hoop, confident that your hoop is secured on the hoop and press pad. When using the hoop and press pad in the Bernina small oval, insert the hoop and press pad with the wool side down, flip the hoop over, and place it on a table, extending the attachment off the edge of the table. And then simply apply heat with your iron to the wrong side of the hoop.
So that is the explanation of the oval Bernina pad. So if you guys have questions, then let us know. Other questions are popping up, Reen, I thought that we could continue to address. I did notice somebody said for my Viking Epic 2, do the measuring. So like I said, I know particularly the 5x7 fits in my 5x7 Viking hoop, but make sure you double check the other sizes, the 8x8 and the 8x12, 6x10 for your Viking hoops. And then the comment about how thick the pads are. So the wool felt is actually a 1/2 inch thick. The pad is actually thicker than that. That's just how much wool is on top. But I would say, you know, what is that, Reen? Probably about 3/4 of an inch thick for the entire thickness, you think?
I think so.
So
Yeah.
somewhere around about there. And then I did notice, I think it was Retha Ranky. Forgive me, the comments are moving so fast, but I think it was Retha that said yes. And so Retha said she uses the dime magnetic hoops, and does she use the wool mat? So these currently are only designed for the standard hoops because of the depth of that inner ring. So there's much more space that you need to fill with your standard hoops versus the magnetic hoops. So that's why we currently have them for the standard hoops. So right
The
now
magnetic
these are
hoops
all
are
for
kind of
standard hoops.
flat as they are, so you really
Right.
don't, you know, need this type of product for it. I saw a question about the pad for the largest hoop for the Solaris. Well, right now the largest pad we have is 8x12. You guys really need to, you know, send emails, let us know what other sizes you want available. You know, more sizes will come, but, you know, we have to have a demand for those.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another question here was from Mary. She said, can you stitch through the print and stick target paper? You can stitch through it, but it's just like tape. It doesn't dissolve in any way. I would only run stitches through it if it accidentally had to be done, because it would rip easily out of your run stitches. If you stitched through with a fill stitch design or satin stitch design, that's going to be difficult to remove, and it does not dissolve. I'm just using the scraps like I would use in the place of tape. So to kind of give you an idea. So and then we answered how thick are the pads, and like I said, it's the wool is a 1/2 inch wool on there. So so I think that's good. One more thing that I wanted to mention, because like Reen said, her thought process for this was, you know, whenever you're working from the back, well, unfortunately, there's another time we have to work from the back of the hoop, Reen, and that's when we have to unsew.
Right.
And so I will bring up my camera again, and I'll show you a little example of that. So I've got my 5x7 hoop here. This is the 5x7 for my baby lock machine, and then my 5x7 hoop and press pad. And I need to unsew, because who wants to put O on anything, right? So, but that was my mistake. But when you need to unsew or remove stitches, here at Dime we use our stitch ripper, but you're putting pressure on the back. So if you have to undo something, that's another great use of these. So, and the stitch ripper does require that I'm trying to find a letter that would be able to see on the camera. It does require that you press so that the little blade snips the stitches there. And when you do that, you don't want to loosen your stabilizer. If you're trying to remove your stitches to in order to save this, then you certainly don't want your stabilizer to get loosened. So, and just look how easy those fall out. I didn't go all the way around, but that's another use of the hoop and press pads as well. So, Reen, can you think of other uses that you might do with the hoop and press pads? I think we covered quite a bit of them.
Yeah, I've got one more that I really like it for. Let me switch my camera.
Sure.
So on this design, the same bag that I was working on a lot of my designs, you have to, when you're doing a bag, you're going to remove this little piece of stabilizer from behind the zipper. Right underneath the stabilizer is the zipper. And you would want to do this while the bag is being constructed so you can get inside of your bag when it's finished. And again, with the hoop and press pad underneath, I've got it underneath there. I am able to get my scissors, and let me just get this started. And I'm only getting underneath my stabilizer. But with the hoop and press pad with that support underneath there, I can do the trimming that I need to do back here and not worry so much about cutting into my zipper because of the support that's underneath here. I don't have to take my scissors and, kind of press down to get underneath that stabilizer and possibly get into my zipper. That support just kind of, makes it where it's so much easier for me to trim. And then now I'll be able to get into my bag when it's finished. So I like them for not only taping, pressing, but trimming. And let's see, I think we've used them for something else that they were really great in. Ashley, we've been using for applique.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So the last time we were talking about this, we were ironing from the back for the applique. You had used a particular fabric that wasn't heat safe. And so you wanted to fuse your applique, from the back is not to touch the top, because things like faux leather, like I can put a cooler iron on the back, but I can't touch the faux leather side. So you want to iron from the back. And also some adhesives are attracted to the heat, so they flow toward the warmer temperature. So then it would bond into your garment or your item a lot better. So, yeah, I
You're going to get a stronger bond to
things, right?
Press from the back side. So again, the pad is there giving you support. I saw a couple of questions. Ashley, someone was asking, they have a 7x12 hoop. Can they use the 6x10 pad?
Yep,
well,
I've got that.
I believe you could, but of course, it's not going to completely fill the whole, void of the frame. So, you just got to kind of watch, but a 7x12 pad could be coming. So
yeah, absolutely.
Watch for that.
Point. Yeah, good point on that one, Reen. I saw another question down here. And so Mary S. Larson says she'd like to see 11x18 for the Janome M17. She's one of those lucky ladies that has that new Janome with a massive hoop in it. 11x18, Reen. What kind of big in the hoop project could we do if we had 18 full inches, right?
Yeah, really, that's unbelievable. I can't even think of something that big.
Yeah, she's a lucky lady. So, and then Ann Philbeck says, better than taking the frame off and taking stitches out. Guess how I know? Sounds like she learned. Sounds like Ann learned a valuable lesson.
You want to remove any stitches that you have to from the back side of the hoop because actually I've done this and you probably have too, but if you have to remove stitches and you're trying to do it from the front side, you can rip that fabric, or if you're working on a jacket of someone's or something. Right. So you always want to work from the back side, and that hoop and press pad is going to allow you to, put a little pressure on there so you can get those stitches.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is actually a really good question from Edith Walk. Is it hard to use the stitch ripper without cutting the fabric? And it's actually not, because generally on embroidery, when we're removing satin and fill stitches, that's generally what we use for the stitch ripper. The stabilizer is still intact under the stitches, so it kind of gives a barrier. But I can honestly say the way the blades work to snip the thread, I even haven't had any issue with it it snipping the fabric, no matter how hard I press. And I sometimes feel like it's going through the stabilizer even, but no, it's designed for this purpose. And so doing the ripping from the back, it's really easy. It doesn't damage your fabric, and it's super quick. If you do have to unsew, right, Reen, it's
Right.
well, we don't like to admit, but it definitely could go it could go quicker if you have an electronic seam ripper for sure. So
I did see another question earlier about they had brother baby lock and then a question mark. And these standard pads, the inches, the ones that Ashley was showing, these will fit brother and baby lock machines. The oval ones are, Bernina basically has the only oval hoops out there. But if you have a brother or a baby lock machine, you're good to go with these, with the standard.
we have a request for a 9.5 by 9.5. So I agree. I love my 9.5 square hoop too. So, and Retha says she wants the stitch ripper. So Retha, definitely, it's a good one to have on hand. I saw another comment fly by earlier that somebody said, I needed it yesterday. I wish I'd already had it on hand, but needed to order it. So.
I saw a question too about the foam, and there was like, can you stitch through the foam? Yes, definitely. You can stitch through the foam. I mean, when I did this bag, I laid the, big piece of foam down. When I got to the back piece, you actually laid the back fabric down, the foam goes on top and it stitches around, and there's absolutely no problem stitching through the foam. Like I said, if you find that your foot is dragging a little bit, then raise your embroidery foot up a notch or two, a click or two. It's in your settings. You have to go to the settings to do that, but raise it up and then it'll just glide right over, and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I think that's a great tip. So many times I think that's something that we don't always think of at our embroidery machine. We think it's just going to do everything when we push go, just as it should. But if you're putting really thick stuff in there, I agree. Or like you said, like if it's really furry, which, gives it a lot more thickness too. So, but you don't want to raise your foot too high. And two, my biggest tip is to remember to put that back down to normal height.
I was just going to say that, because it won't go back down unless you put it down. Even if you turn the machine off, or at least mine won't, it won't, go back. So you have to remember to put it back to default.
You do. And so yeah, we've got a vote for 10.5 by 16. That is from our very own Laurie Albrecht. So lots of requests out there. So, okay. So Reen, if you are good, I wanted to share our on the house design with everyone this week and show some of the projects that we did that we had submitted from last week. So what do you think?
If I could just answer one more question, because I know this one comes up a lot. I see Daryl's asking, do they work on 10 needle machines? These pads right now aren't meant to work on 10 needles. They are just for your regular single needle machine. The 10 multi-needle hoops, they're a little bit different. So these really aren't going to work on those. So right now the pads are just for single needle machines.
Yeah, good. Very good point. And then this is another question on the foam. Do you trim the foam out of the seam allowance? And I would say yes, Reen, but what's your suggestion?
Yes, you do trim it out when you're all done with the bag, and I don't have a finished one here, but my instructions will tell you, even batting, if you just use batting, the instructions will tell you and show you how to trim it right up against the stitches before you do anything else, because if you get the foam out, you get the batting out, it's going to make your corners come out nicely. It's going to make your seams push out nicely. And by what I mean by your seams push out nicely is, look at this bag. It's
nice and crisp, beautiful.
Right, it's nice and crisp all the way around. It's a rectangle the way it was intended to be. So that, trimming it keeps all of these edges nice and straight.
Right. Keeps the bulk out of your seams for sure. So, and Sheila Vetter says, what size needle do you need for the foam? So I generally use like my 75 or 80 needle when I'm embroidering or stitching on that foam. And so Reen, do you have a preference on your needle?
I was just using a 7511. On this bag, I think I changed to an 8012 only because this faux fur is thicker than fabric. I had the foam. I had this faux leather up here at the top. So, I had a lot going on in this bag. And this is a 6x10. So I did bump my needle up to an 80-12 for that.
That's a gorgeous bag. And just to having that difference in the fabric makes it look, like really professional, like you bought it from the department store. So, and then Retha Ranke said, where does she get the foam? And so Retha, that is a dime product. So it is on our website. It's called Sew Any Shape Foam. And it's actually a foam that was chosen by Eileen specifically for embroiderers. It's a really nice thickness for using with anything that you need to do in the hoop. Some of the foams for bags are really thick and it's not the best choice for embroidery projects, but that one was specifically chosen by Eileen for that particular reason. So yeah, check the website. And I see our team is posting links to the Stitch Ripper and other things on our site that we've mentioned here today. So okay, so let's then take a look at our on the house designs, Reen, and see what everybody was doing last week. So I think the majority of the people here are familiar with our on the house program. This is a free design every single week that we give away here, but the one caveat, it's not even really a caveat, but we want to see your projects. We love to see your projects. So share what you've stitched with the On the House designs at a hashtag Dime Sew Along on Facebook or Instagram, or hashtag On the House or hashtag Exquisite Thread if you're using our Exquisite Thread line. So these are free over at dzgns.com. They will be available throughout the year, so you can go back and get all of them. We're on week, can you believe this, Reen? We're on week 35 of 2022. I don't even like to say that because that's so close to 50, which we know there's 52 weeks in the year. So we're approaching the end of the year, but get all those designs while they're still there. We'll be offering one still each week for the remainder of the year. And then each month, Eileen creates a project with one of the designs as well. So watch for that. Now, this last week, we saw a couple of people post their design creations. And so we've got Crystal Campbell. Thank you so much for posting this. This is the cutest little bag. She used Winter Sunny Girl, Spring Sunny Girl. We've got Sunny Girl for each season now. So Spring Sunny Girl. And the perfect complement with those cute little fringe designs. And Reen, she did admit in her comments that this is an In the Hoop bag from Embroidery Garden. So
wow.
Perfect, right? It was just the combination of everything here for today, but I love that. She did a fantastic job, color choices and everything. And then Esther Hoplin, thank you so much for submitting your label for Sunny Girl. So she did the winter label for Sunny Girl. So last week's projects were quilt labels made from each of the seasons of Sunny Girl. So if you don't have that downloaded, check it out as well. So thank you. That is gorgeous. Sunny Girl has been so popular in all the seasons. So I love that. Thanks everyone for sharing those designs. And then because we release one every week, so Reen, look at this. This is the new design for this week. This is our silhouette cat. What do you think this is perfect for?
It's just adorable. I can see that on so many things.
Isn't that cute? It's a fill stitch with that beautiful swirly tail there. And what we've done, Reen, because, hey, it's getting that time of year that we're thinking about Halloween. So we did a color combination with the black cat and green eyes. But, of course, you could use any color that you wanted to for your silhouette cat. But I just can see that on so many things with some really catchy or witty text. So I can't wait to see what everybody does with their black cat, their silhouette cat. So, well, I just want to thank everyone for being here, and especially Reen, our queen of In the Hoop. So we really appreciate you and all your creations and the description of the hoop and press pads. Make sure that you check out that special. It's definitely a must-have in your embroidery room, I think. Wouldn't you say, Reen?
I believe so. I think it is the new must-have tool.
Must-have tool. I love it. Anything that makes our life easier. So, well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Reen, for joining me. And so until next time that we are on Between Friends, we're going to say bye for now.
Bye.